First off, I want to introduce myself. My name is John Prim. I'm the chaplain for hospice family care, and I spent time with Phil during his passing. And Phyllis asked me to share a few words. Can I ask a favor? If you have one of these things, would you put it on stun? Would that be all right? Stun. Yeah, put it on stun, because I just having a phone going off in the middle of something like this, I think, is a little bit sideways. But I wanted to share some things today, and hopefully you'll bear with me. I am a Southern Baptist pastor, so if you have a watch, just set it for the next 2 hours. I'm kidding, of course. But why are we here? We're here to celebrate a life, a very special life, the life of Philip Buchanan. Now, I want to give you some particulars, statistics, if you will. Phil was born on August 15th, 1943. And he passed away on September 29th, 2018. He was married for 47 years with Phyllis. 47 years, that's pretty awesome. And he left behind family and friends, such as you. Those are the statistics, but that doesn't tell the whole story, does it? Not at all. He was an educated man. Did you know that? He had multiple degrees. He graduated from Syracuse University with a master's degree. That means he's semi-smart. Now, he loved Syracuse. How many knew that? Yeah, there you go. He loved Syracuse, and he loved their sports. And so Phil, they're in second place right now in the ACC, okay? And they're ranked 20th in the nation in football. It looks like we're going to a bowl game, dude. Okay? I just thought I'd let him know, in case he was listening. You know, he worked hard as a teacher, and then later as a worker in the financial department of Onondaga Community College, and then finally as a project manager and financial officer for a project called Jobs Plus, which was all about helping those who are less privileged to get the things they would need to get to be able to find a job. And he was proud of that. I think I would be too, wouldn't you? Pretty awesome. He also struggled, as all of us really do. He struggled with things in his life, and he was a friend of Bill W., and some of you know what I'm talking about. And yet, even in the midst of that, that doesn't tell the whole story. It just doesn't. You know, he loved Christmas. No. He loved Christmas. In fact, I understand that he would sing Christmas carols all year long. Now, I think that's a sick mind, personally. And he was a giver. He was a giver. You know, I understand he spoiled Phyllis every Christmas. He spoiled her. And then he also, with that giving heart, volunteered in La Posada with their bingo. Can you imagine? B9. I can see it now. He volunteered at CPAC also. And his giving heart was shown in that he would deposit flowers with no reason whatsoever. That's interesting, isn't it? He was one who opened his house to have Christmas dinner at his house. And he was one who gave, donating to worthy causes. You know, I hear a story about him when he was RVing, and you know, for about 11 years, and what I understand, he RV'd across the United States with Phyllis. Now, personally, that to me that sounds like a real tedious thing. But he would go to places and they would go fishing and they would enjoy nature, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But one of those times, they were in Missouri, I believe it was, and they were at an RV park, and he was out fishing and he met a young man. And the young man was telling him about how in his neighborhood he would go and mow lawns for the elderly people of his neighborhood, and he would do it for free. You know what Phil did? He wrote him a little note and he put money in there for gas for his mower so that when he got back he could do it blessed even more. That's what kind of spirit he had. Phil was a giver. He was thoughtful and sensitive also. He was a friend, and he was one who had a quiet dignity. You know what? He gave great support to the other members of the club, if you will. He cared about others and gave his life for those kinds of things. He was humble and honest and true to his word. I like that last one. True to his word. It doesn't happen too often these days. And he was that kind of person. He adopted Marcia as his sister. Now, I think this is amazing. You know, he's in the hospital, and I don't know if you know about hospitals or not, but they are weird. I would say they get really anal about who can be with whom in a hospital. Do you know what I'm talking about? And there he is in the hospital. There's nobody there, and guess what happens? Marcia shows up, and they say, "You can't be here." And he declares to the hospital workers, "That's my sister." That's a very sweet friend. Now, Marcia tainted poor Phil because she tried to convert him to Iowa instead of Syracuse. That landed as flat as Iowa is, actually. But he did go with them, you know, on game day that they would watch either one of those teams when they played. Isn't that right, Marcia? Do I have it right? And one time, evidently, Marcia was not very happy with Iowa and the way that they were playing and was expressing herself, as she might. And he said to her, "You know, it's just a game."
Sure.
You know, he had an adopted son, in spirit, if you will. His name was Mark. And Mark was one who said that Phil was like a father to him. And I hope you don't mind me reading a text that he sent. And it says this. And this is Mark speaking. "Phil was like a father to me. I was able to talk to him as a son would talk to his father. Phil had a way about him that enabled me to share my fears and shortcomings in life. Phil gave me hope and courage to face life, grow into a man, and be the father that I wanted to be, but was not." That's a very special person that would share in that way with someone like Mark. Just absolutely amazing. And you know another thing about Phil? He loved Phyllis. He loved you. I know that. My experience as the hospice chaplain, I unfortunately found myself having to come into their home at probably the most tragic and challenging time that anybody could ever imagine. And as I came in, I could see Phil did not want to leave. And he fought, and he fought, and he fought with all of his might to stay because he loved his wife. He didn't want to leave her. He didn't want to leave her by herself. He was close to her. He fought till there was no more fight in him because he loved. And you know what? That doesn't tell the whole story. It just doesn't. Henry David Thoreau said, now this is amazing to me. 168 years ago, this month, in fact, on the 16th of this month, he said this. I love nature. I love the landscape because it is so sincere. It never cheats me. It never jests. It is cheerfully, musically earnest. Phil and Henry David Thoreau had the same spirit. He loved the nature. He loved to go out and to be in it. He was very attentive when he went into it. In fact, they would call him the field guide because he would see things that nobody else saw. And he would point it out to everybody because he cared about how glorious and wonderful it is to be in nature. Madera Canyon was a place of refuge for he and Phyllis. As they would go up, sit by the stream, they might read, they might take in the nature around them, but it was a place where he could unwind and be captivated by the beauty all around them. I understand that he was the president of the SOB organization. Now, before you go off into your mind somewhere else, the SOB organization is the organization called Save Our Bugs. He didn't want to kill anything. He tried to save them all. You know what else? Phil loved his dogs. And I got to tell you, do you mind if can I be honest?
Sure.
The yappiest dog I've ever met in my whole life. Okay, now I'm a Baptist preacher. Can I get an amen? Yeah, I'm telling you. I would go to their house. They knew me after a while. It didn't matter. Maddie would yap at me and yap at me and yap at me until I noticed I would pet her. And then I was okay. And Nico would just yap. But one of the things that I discovered was that Nico wanted to be tied to Phil to the very end. Wanted to be on him, next to him, with him. And you know why? Because Nico knew that he loved those dogs. He loved them. Yet I'm sorry to say, that does not tell the whole story. It just doesn't. We could share about, and you could share about, his humor and how funny he was in certain times. His love for the written word, he was an avid reader. We could talk about that. We could talk about his own personal spirituality that he had, and as he might share that. We could talk about his attentiveness to the elderly. We could talk about his closeness to Phyllis's family and his mom, and her mom in particular. He was all those things. You know what I guess I'm trying to share today, this afternoon, is that life's story is never cut off. You hear me? It is never cut off. It is never cut off by death, by distance, by whatever impediment you might think it might be. It is never cut off. It continues on, whether it's in our memory, whether it's in just the distance and rejoining and that, whatever it might be, life's story never ends. Phil's life does the very same. I want you to remember that. I want you to reflect upon that. And I want you to let the worth of this beautiful life, Phil Buchanan, I would like you to have his life encourage you today. He wasn't perfect, but he had great worth. A wonderful person, a great friend, sensitive to a fault. And his life has never ended. Not one bit. Phyllis, not one bit. Okay? I'd like you, if you would mind me the privilege of praying right now. And then after we do that, I'd like us to recite the serenity prayer. So I'm going to pray, and then we'll conclude with the serenity prayer. Father God, your word tells us in the book of Psalms that in your light we see light. And we saw your light infill in this darkness of the earth that we live at times. Oh God, I thank you for that. I thank you that we saw that light infill, and I thank you that we were blessed by getting to know him. May his memory continue on, and I pray that you might bless those who grieve his loss, even now. And Father, I pray more than anything else that this life of great worth would be a blessing to us in our future. And I ask it in your most blessed name. Amen.
Amen.
Inside of your little bulletin, the Serenity Prayer is there. If you would recite it with me as we close together, and then y'all can mingle. How's that? Okay. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you for letting me have this privilege to share it.